Senator Reynolds.
Thank you very much, Deputy President. Well, every time I stand up here and speak to this motion, I think Labor couldn't sink any further to the bottom, but yet they managed to do so. At the last estimates, as Senator Steele-John has so passionately and correctly articulated, not only are they refusing to provide transparency within this chamber of the basic documents which go to the financial sustainability of the scheme, at estimates we saw the absolute disgrace, at additional estimates, with an agency that had a very large additional estimates variation. The CEO of the NDIA, at Minister Shorten's direction, nonetheless, refused to provide the additional estimates data for the agency. Refused. And why did they refuse? Because the figures happened to be replicated in the quarterly report, which had been produced and was sitting on Minister Shorten's desk and the desk of every state and territory disability minister. But because the agency CEO couldn't find it to go down to Minister Shorten's office and grab the information, or the information she had on her laptop, she said the information wasn't available. Well, that was clearly a lie. It was available. So they didn't provide the data on the scheme. But guess what? The very next morning they published the quarterly report. They published the quarterly report. So this lack of transparency is not just a disgrace for how Labor treats senators, and on behalf of senators, all Australians who fund the NDIS, but as Senator Steele-John has said, there are over 650,000 people now on the scheme, and those with serious and permanent disability whose lives it has changed are now incredibly worried about what they are going to do in the scheme. So what was this data that they were hiding at additional estimates? Well, numbers of participants as of the 31st of December were 646,449, which is 0.5% higher than the June 2023 projections. So rather than the scheme it was hiding, they were hiding the fact that the scheme continues to increase in both participant numbers and the average cost per package, which are the two drivers of the scheme. So on behalf of the minister today, Senator McAllister says that, well, we've done another review and everything is going to be fine. Well, that is simply not true. Actually understanding the problem was never the issue with this scheme. Before this 2-year review, there were at least 30 reviews. The problems are well known, but there are no easy solutions to reforming this scheme so that it survives for those with serious and permanent disabilities in our nation. So admiring the problem from every which way has never been the issue, but yet that's what they've done. And clearly this is a union agenda now, and also, sadly, the big providers. So you have a look at what the review is recommending to change the legislation. They want to remove choice and control from NDIS participants. That is one of the fundamental tenets of this scheme, is that people with serious and permanent disability for the first time have choice and control over their own lives, how they live their lives, what service providers they get. But this government now wants to destroy that fundamental tenet of this scheme. Not only do they want to do that, they also want to go back essentially to block funding for large providers and destroying independent contractors in the sector by making them be registered, which will, of course, not drive down the costs. Anybody who knows anything about economics know that it will drive up costs further of the scheme. So I'll finish on this. Is that the other thing we found at the third quarter report, that the NDIS actuary, after an hour of the most painful questioning, is that this government has $60 billion worth of savings already booked in the budget over the next 9 years. $60 billion worth of savings that they have ripped out of the budget. And guess what? They're spending $720 million and saying that that will realise those savings. That cannot happen, and it will not, and it is the biggest fraud, and shame on you for everything you're doing to those on the scheme.